mechanism to change behaviour. But they don't know that. So it's effective.
Unless they watch this podcast.
No.
Giving the game away now. It doesn't matter what key holding or service you've got in place or what response you've got in place. Most burglaries are over before anybody can react, you know.
In and out.
Yeah.
So why do we still do it?
It's a good question. Everything else has fallen over. Someone might go, do you think we should try security fog? And then that's when they start talking to us. But we're seeing with certain clients more direct ownership of their security arrangements. I mean, there's no secrets that some of the country's largest retailers have showed their security operating centres on the TV to say, look, this is what we've got. Yeah.
What you're now getting, though, is the AI camera or the camera with analytics on it now trying to act as an intrusion detection product. And that creates different types of false alarms, but generally those false alarms don't do anything. They don't create a response.
We're going from, reactive to proactive.
Radar's very good in open spaces where there's a lot of clutter. Radar's not that great, but radar's great. It can see in the dark.
It will automatically find, if you trip the perimeter, etc., and it'll start firing.
We need to install in all the major areas because that's where most of the crime is, But actually concentration of attacks, it would have done better by starting in the outlying regions where it's hard to get a response. I mean, some of these places, it was bananas, The bad guys were turning up with rocket launchers. It's completely madness.
If a thief walks up, the light comes on and go away.
Yeah.
Now, a thief walks up to that, the light comes on, he actually says, thanks. He's like, thanks, that's helping me out. Today, we're breaking down one of the most important parts of modern security: how we detect, deter, and defend against intruders before an incident even begins. The industry has shifted from reacting to alarms to trying to prevent incidents altogether. And this episode is all about understanding what that changed and what it means for installers, for customers, and for system design. To explore this properly, I'm joined by three people who work across the full spectrum of proactive security. Lawrence Peters from Optex, Jason Hill from DeviceSmart, and Matthew Gilmartin from Smokescreen. Together, we'll look at how detection has evolved, how deterrence influences behaviour, and what really happens at the point of intrusion. We'll also discuss integration, installer understanding, and where proactive security is heading over the next few years. This is an honest, open conversation about how the detect, deter, and defend approach works in the real world. Let's dive straight into it. So on this episode, as we're talking about detect, deter, and defend, I want to open up the topic with previously, or what we've seen over the last few years, is an incident takes place, alarm goes off, and then someone goes and responds. However, we've seen a bit of a shift in terms of all types of security, whether it be intruder alarms, perimeter protection, and also with video surveillance, where there's more of an objective of detecting the intruders or thieves even before they get to the property. As we've seen with cameras nowadays, they've got now flashing lights, they've got sirens. Where do you think the shift started taking place, where we're going from, reactive to proactive?
Well, I think, firstly, you've got to look at the situation historically. Does reactive work? Has it consistently deterred crime?
The answer would be no.
I remember looking at, I think you're exactly right, the historic sort of perspective. When I first joined the industry in 1999, I remember looking at some police response times, and I can't remember which force it was, but their target response time to an emergency call was 9 minutes. But then you have to look a little bit further and go, well, what's an emergency response call? And the way they classified it was anywhere that life would be in danger. Yeah. And in a commercial burglary, for instance, what life's in danger? There's nobody there. So that would immediately get declassified. So
and those wait times would then increase, wouldn't they?
Right. And, there's got to be an acceptance that the police can't respond to every single thing. You know,
Is there
impossible.
an assumption that the police will even respond today?
I think it's a mixture between different police forces across the UK. You'll get different responses. I've seen it where in prior jobs where we've got an incident, we've got live theft occurring on a location. Some police forces won't attend because there's no threat to life, and then other police forces, believe it or not, a helicopter will go out. it's a real mixture.
You never. Life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get.
Yeah, and it really varies across different counties.
I like the helicopter service. Where do you sign up for that?
I think it was around Oxfordshire.
Okay.
That becomes like a postcode lottery then, doesn't it? It depends where you are, depends what kind of response you get. I remember me and Matt were sat with a police force, and they were telling us that if they get a call in from, let's say, a warehouse that's been broken into, and they've got police going towards that, but then they get another call in as a domestic violence, that police car is going back straight towards the domestic violence because that takes priority. That building's probably got insurance and everything else with it. So it's like you said, there's a number of factors. The police is one of them. What kind of reaction time do we get? But also, I've seen a lot of businesses now having private security attending properties.
Yes, but that's I think quite normal now in commercial and retail. Nobody's going to say, well, let's just rely on the police response. They're going to say we need to instigate private key holding or private guarding, so that we know we've got a reaction time, that we know we've got a service, and we're probably supporting our insurers' requirements.
Yeah.
But in the real world, it doesn't matter what key holding or service you've got in place or what response you've got in place. Most burglaries are over before anybody can react. You know,
in and out.
Yeah.
So why do we still do it?
It's a good question. It's a really good question.
So that then, you brought up a really good point then, is the burglary happens, let's say, 2 minutes, 3 minutes for a burglar. That's a long time. How has security changed in the way that we can try and slowly deter them or detect them beforehand to give them that thing? They think, you know what, this property probably isn't the one that we need to target.
So, I mean, that's the philosophy of target hardening. So, what do you do to increase the layers of deterrence around targets? And I think the simplistic view of it is just to put more kit in. Put more detectors.
That's what an installer would say, because obviously
you need more. The target hardening just equals more equipment.
Yeah.
And actually, I think it's probably a little bit more nuanced than that.
Yeah, I think it's about predicting as well. And there are companies out there now where they will do the risk mitigation for companies, particularly around solar, where you've got gangs operating, targeting solar sites. They're really vulnerable.
Yes. And then always unmanned.
Always unmanned. People can sit there for a whole weekend, strip the place of cable. That's £250,000 worth of damage. So that is a big risk, and they're not interruption to supply. So a lot of companies now will turn to other companies now to actually predict that and understand where those gangs are operating, so they can then do the hardening of the site and put in the countermeasures that they need to do, and they can be flexible with that then as well. So, but there's a real drive towards that as well that I see.
That's good. I've always thought data is where the innovation's got to be, really, and the manipulation and analysis of data to sort of give that predictive trend. Because the instance that you mentioned, it's like the perfect storm, isn't it? Because a solar site's going to be remote, so it's difficult to get the response to, as well as the issue that nobody will maybe know that they're there operating in the first place. So even if you do get a detection, the response is difficult, and they'll go off on quad bikes in the other direction. So
Yeah, or cause a distraction somewhere else, and I've seen that as well, and especially rural areas and things. Worked with a retailer down in the southwest. Distraction was caused in Glastonbury. The one squad car for the whole of the county went off to Glastonbury, and then the retailer got hit.
Yeah.
So, and then they're in and out within sort of five minutes. Got what they needed, and then off they went.
I think there's quite a significant difference between organised crime, highly structured in those examples, and perhaps the more opportunistic crime that probably most people will deal with. I guess we get to see a little bit more of that high-level organised crime than is impacting most of the UK society.
I often joke that I never go to any of the nice places. You know, it's always to the worst. People are like, "Oh, you're jetting off again?" Yeah, it's nowhere nice.
And do you think customers actually understand the difference with proactive and reactive, or is this has to be educated to them from the installers or manufacturers alike?
There's significant assumptions. Again, I think it's we need to put in an alarm. That's just that's a must. You must have an alarm, and then of course there's different levels of monitoring and response to that. But I don't think anybody would say, "Oh no, we don't need an alarm system in this property." It's just part of the course.
Typically, and I think you were sort of going in this direction, typically people are just satisfying what the insurers have told them to do. Nobody wakes up in the morning thinking, "Do you know what, I'm going to aspirationally purchase some better security."
Well, I think that it definitely leads in towards the CCTV aspect. And my majority of my career is working for CCTV surveillance manufacturers. So I have an invested history in this to some extent. And I think if you went back to the early 90s when I entered the industry, the assumption was that the cameras were monitored. If you walked to a shop and saw a CCTV camera,
it's a psychological thing, isn't it? Yeah.
You would assume probably that there was a guy in a little office out the back somewhere watching that, and therefore watching you, and that was the deterrent and the behavioural change. And then, of course, over time, people have realised, well, actually, there's nobody watching them. Even if they've recorded it, nothing happens as a result.
Yeah. If you cover your face as well, then you're all clear.
Pull down the hoodie. But again, I think if you're looking at end users' approach to target hardening, they'll go, well, we must have an alarm, that's a given. Let's put cameras on because they at least are a deterrent. And then they'll keep layering from there. But again, actually, if you were to sit down and say, well, what is the alarm doing? And who's watching the cameras? Actually, you're going to undermine their assumptions pretty quickly.
Yeah, but they still, like you said at the start, they still do it. Everyone's still doing the same thing.
I think I would say that alarms are predominantly driven by insurers, and cameras are predominantly driven by curiosity, because cameras serve a very personal benefit. It gives us data and it gives us visibility of what's going on. And as human beings, we love that. Yeah. We like to be able to see and go back and see what happened historically. That's really useful information to us. In terms of its effectiveness at changing criminal behaviour, I'm not so sure.
I always say when people ask what's the best kind of security to go for, first thing I'd tell them, you need to have some decent locks on your property. I say number one is get locks. Number two is have an alarm system, because that's an immediate, noises going off, people getting notified. And I know we do training on it, but with video surveillance, I say to people, that's good for watching what happened when people broke into your car. You can see the person drive off. Yeah. That's always for after the event. It's never immediate, because majority of the time, like you said, it's not monitored.
Well, I think, Matt mentioned about data-driven, being the future potentially of security. And of course, if you look at the CCTV industry, a lot of what goes on there now is analytics, whether that's live analytics of how somebody's behaving on a site
or retroactive.
Or retroactive. And it's like, okay, identify the green car from yesterday that drove in this direction. So CCTV is phenomenal for producing very useful data, but it is post-analysis. It is, let's have a look at what happened. Yeah. And a little bit more now, it is proactive in terms of, okay, let's create an alarm event if we see something that we don't like. But then it's like, okay, you created the alarm event. Where does that go? You're going to tag it on the NVR so that you can review it tomorrow?
Yeah.
I think you'll probably report the same, that we're seeing more of a push in final clients, end users, to have more intervention style security. So the whole title of this podcast is Detect, Deter, Defend. It's that defense bit that really, I think, is a subtle change in the way the industry's moved. So I always used to say, kind of half jokingly, that if you're talking to me, you're already in a really bad place, because nobody ever goes, the very first thing we should do is fit a security fogging system.
You're like the last line of defence.
Yeah, exactly. When everything else has fallen over, someone might go, do you think we should try security fog? And then that's when they start talking to us. But we're seeing with certain clients more direct ownership of their security arrangements. I mean, there's no secrets that some of the country's largest retailers have showed their security operating centres on the TV to say, look, this is what we've got.
Yeah.
Where they'll detect, for instance, shoplifting or aggression against staff, and then intervene, whether that's through voice challenge or some other.
I've seen that.
Method.
Boots do that, don't they? They have their own operating centre where they're actually monitoring.
Yeah. It's a really nice setup. I've been in there. Yeah, it's really good. Yeah.
So that's that intervention piece that's probably missing in the story that we've told up until now. Where
I think as well, just touching on retailers, they're suffering really badly at the moment, targeted with shoplifting. Organised crime knows it's low risk to them. The courts haven't caught up. But interestingly, Operation Opal, or Opal, part of the police, they've got an operation called Operation Pegasus, where the retailers are now paying to
have an enhanced police presence.
Yeah, have an enhanced police presence, basically.
Oh, right.
On there. So, yeah, I don't know if you were aware of that as well. Yeah. So, but yeah, it's a big issue for them. So, yeah.
I think when you're talking about touching on retail, they're having big problems. You just need to open up social media and you'll see people literally just going into the stores.
Exactly that, yeah.
Picking the stuff up and walking out because the employees can't do anything to stop them.
Rightly so, I think. It's a debate, isn't it? But
yeah, they're not turning up to work to
be
defend
put in a dangerous situation.
A dangerous situation. So there's a big issues that are happening throughout. I think all sectors. But I want to move on to detection. And previously, I think everyone here in this room, false alarms with detectors in all aspects that we've historically seen. And now we're seeing lots of different changes, even to the point where AI is coming into it. I was at a recent manufacturers event where they're bringing out AI that can pick up a person nearly 80, 90 meters away. How do you see detection, the changes that have taken place with detection? Because I think you were mentioning to me just before, there's now LiDAR. And also there's another manufacturer I've seen they do radar as well.
Yeah, it's radar as well.
And I've seen them coming into video surveillance as well, like built in. How do you think that's going to enhance security?
I think you'll see it more and more. We obviously we're a detect business, but we've got the high-end solutions like the LiDAR, which are highly accurate. And I think it's like the topics we're going to move on to later. It's all about a layered approach and having the backstop effectively as well. But I think we're seeing more and more people going for that high end, especially with government and things as well. Radar is very good in open spaces where there's a lot of clutter. Radar's not that great, but radar's great. It can see in the dark. LiDAR can see in the dark as well. There's some limitations, but with that as well. But yeah, we're seeing a definite shift towards
What's
that.
the cost now that people, when they start moving away from your traditional detectors up to stuff like this, how's that impacting?
There's a jump up in cost, yeah. There's a significant jump in cost, but we've got data centers are using it for their perimeters on there. You've got fiber optic solutions now. They've already come on as well. You can bury the fiber optic systems up to 100 kilometers on there. You don't need the infrastructure as well. You can just bury the cable and create alarms. You can create your zones virtually on the front end, which is really good. But yeah, there is a cost difference in that. So yeah, it's tricky for sometimes people to get their heads around that jump up in cost on it. But then you are getting
better
accuracy.
Accurate, less false alarms of
less false alarms, which is a problem. Coming back to the false alarm thing at the moment, that is a challenge, I think, within the industry at the moment with false alarms from line crossing, because people have shifted towards cameras with AI. Obviously, are you going to put two devices in or one device? You're going to put one device in. You're going to do a camera which does detection and it records at the same time. But often those have challenges in low light levels, different weather conditions and things as well. So the false alarm issue, I think, is still very much there within the industry. So
I think false alarming is shifting. If you go back to the early days where it was an intrusion detection false alarm, so your PIR's gone off because the dog's walked in front of it, and that creates a police response, and then eventually you get struck off.
Or a pigeon.
So I think
that's
area
what drove a lot of the British and European standards, isn't it? Was built
issue. All around that.
Yeah.
So now I think the technology for reducing false alarms within intruder alarm systems is pretty stable and reliable, and I'm sure all the manufacturers would like to say that's true. What you're now getting though is the AI camera or the camera with analytics on it now trying to act as an intrusion detection product, and that creates different types of false alarms, but generally those false alarms don't do anything. They don't create a response. Where do they go? They may create an alarm event on a recording system or flag it up on the VMS or something. And I think, here again, we've got to be a little bit careful if we're comparing like government type sites where you might actually have an operations centre and people that do something, or whether you're talking about sort of retail, commercial and domestic, where cameras with the tripwire actually, they don't really do much at all apart from, create an event somewhere. And I think it's that piece of the puzzle to some extent that's missing is you need to create behavioural change, not just record data. And the data has a value, of course. But if you're not doing something proactive with that data, if you're not making a prediction or a behavioural change, well, what are you doing? I
think you're exactly right, that all of it needs to marry together. So the best example I can quote of this is work that we did in Latin America with two very, very large privately owned banks, and the risks in the marketplace very different to what we experience here in the UK. There was 100 attacks per month using dynamite on ATM lobbies. So can you imagine that happening here?
It's hard to buy that much dynamite.
100 attacks a month.
A month, yeah. And the mode of attack was to break into an ATM lobby, lever open the cash dispenser jaws, dynamite all the way down, like, bang. And then the shockwave would force the safe door off the back of the ATM, fire all the money out the back before it was destroyed, and then they'd just go in and scoop up the cash and go 100 times a month across. I mean, it's over a very large geographically dispersed area. Each of these clients had got upwards of 5,000 sites, so there's a fairly major issue to react to all of that, and they did it very successfully. And their mode of operation was detect by camera, so what you were talking about, the line crossing at a certain point in the ATM lobby, visually verify an attack in progress. So that's an important distinction. There was somebody that would have an alert driven to them, and then they could take action. Intervene by firing fog. But the interesting bit that is the marriage of everything together is how they were then able to use data over time and overlay it across, because there's a huge data pool there, 5,000 sites and 100 attacks a month to see what works where and why. So it's really interesting to see that overlaying of the data. So I'll give you an example, practical example. They showed a heat map of fog installations, and to be clear, they rolled out across the entire estates. I mean, I was having a lot of travel to and from Latin America. And they showed me a heat map of all the installations, and this was in Brazil. And there was no surprises. The vast majority of the installations were in Sao Paulo and Rio de Janeiro, so the major centres, yeah. And they said, but look what happens when we do this against attacks per capita, yeah? And it totally changed the picture, and they were getting a higher concentration of attacks in much less populated areas. So using that intelligence to direct where their installation program was going was really critical, which feeds into your point of using data intelligently after the event, I think.
So high risk.
Were they focusing it more than they knew, right, in these lower populated areas we're more highly likely to be attacked?
Yeah, that's right. So their risk model intuitively would have been, we need to install in all the major areas because that's where most of the crime is, yeah. But actually concentration of attacks, it would have done better by starting in the outlying regions where it's hard to get a response. I mean, some of these places, it was bananas, yeah. The bad guys were turning up with rocket launchers. It's completely madness. So it's a different kettle of fish. Like I said, I go to all the nice places.
Just a quick reminder, today's episode is sponsored by Suprema, leading global innovator in access control and AI-based biometric solutions. Suprema offers a wide range of products in access control, time and attendance, and biometric solutions.
You mentioned, Jason, we need to look at behavioural changes. And what has changed that? Let's go for retail or even domestic properties, where... Let's go back to the early days. You remember when they brought out those security lights that had like a PIR on it, where they'd expect, if a thief walks up, the light comes on and they'd go away.
Yeah.
Now a thief walks up to that, the light comes on. He actually said, "Thanks." He's like, "Thanks, that's helping me out."
Well, he doesn't. So there's a whole psychology around criminal behaviour. I'm sure you're all familiar with routine activity theory. So it was a theory established back in the late 70s, studying criminology. And it identified that there were three key parts necessary for crime to occur. There had to be a suitable target, or sometimes known as a soft target. There had to be a motivated offender. And there had to be the absence of a capable guardian. If you took one of those three away, crime would not occur. So in terms of how you're dealing with crime prevention, if you've got a policeman sitting in your back garden and somebody jumps over the fence, they're going to go, that appears to be a capable guardian. I'm going to stop at this point and try and find another house. But obviously we know that the guardians aren't always available. So we are in the business of creating technological guardians in different form factors to try to replicate that. And also we are creating technology that tries to make the suitable soft target less suitable. And that's really the business that we're in. So what can we do that reduces some of those components or take those components away entirely, and then that deters crime? Ultimately, all it does, of course, is to displace crime. The opportunist will then move on to another target.
I've experienced that before, with construction sites. One site's getting hit, toolbox on the first floor of a building they were constructing. People were coming in for a graveyard, hitting the toolboxes, obviously tool chests, obviously slow down in production work or stop in production work. Put a system in, and next door was a housing development.
Who's onto that one?
I went onto the housing development after to say, look, we've just put some security in here. We're not interested. And then 2 weeks later, they were on the phone saying we've been hit. It just, like you're saying, it just shifts it down.
And exactly the same scenario happens for the banks when the banks identify problems with ATM crime in a particular region, they might then deploy a system to deter that. And they know, because they all work together, that if they've instigated a system to deter attacks on those ATMs, that the other brand of bank will now be
Take the
attacked.
hits,
So
exactly
they
right,
then
yeah.
need to then target harden in exactly the same way because of that
And
displacement.
that's
effect.
exactly what happened. Exactly that.
Exactly what happened.
Just shifted it down.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
But ultimately, I suppose in our business we just say, well, every property should be protected with our amazing equipment. But what we're trying to do is to say, well, this is a effective form of protection or deterrence. And I think maybe to get back to your question, the security light, which is the business that I'm in now, whilst the security light itself is not going to deter crime, it does have a behavioural change. And all you've got to do is to watch YouTube videos of these guys stealing cars from the driveways. That security light turns on the driveway. They will duck. They will respond. They will react. And it might be a very small psychological change, but it will mean the heart rate will go up a little bit.
Yeah.
And at that point, they've gone, oh, okay, it's a security light. I know what that is. Okay, I'm lit up like a Christmas tree right here, but it doesn't matter because I still think that this is a suitable target and I am still motivated and there is still no guardian around here to stop me. And that's when we need to then escalate.
Yeah.
What were the three things again? Soft target, lack of a suitable guardian,
Yes.
and what was the third one?
Motivated criminal, yeah. If there is a subsequent escalation, so for example, a light turns on inside the house, and they go, "Oh, somebody's woken
Noise.
up."
Siren,
Right. So okay, so the light turned on. Now there's a light on in the house. I'm got to now reevaluate. And of course, this often happens in real time. And this is reactionary behaviour from the criminal. Make a choice. Your heart's going, you had a plan, it's not quite going to plan now. Do you want to carry on? Or do you want to just go and try and find somewhere else?
Yeah.
That Mike Tyson quote, isn't it? Everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the face.
Unfortunately, punching in the face is not a technology we're able to offer. But I think certainly, if we look at some of the mechanisms that are available to us, we have noise, so we have sirens. I don't particularly like sirens because I think they're antisocial and they create a negative impression of security to some extent. I think well-delivered voice warnings are much more effective. Badly delivered voice messages are actually not effective, but well-delivered smart voice messages that tell the intruder that they're
Being
under
watched
surveillance,
or-
being watched.
Yeah. It's not something they're expecting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So those can be effective. And okay, security lighting might not be, a cast iron deterrent, but what we make is escalating deterrents. So the next alarm, the perimeter intrusion or a vibration sensor in our products then triggers a blue and red strobe. And that's that escalation or a proactive
It's blue and
deterrent
red. Yeah.
where
You got
somebody's
that.
gone, hold on, something else has now happened. That's the second trigger I need to change behaviour. And again, it's just that layering. And, it might come down to, okay, you've ignored the voice
Everything,
warning,
yeah.
the light, the strobe light. You're still going to kick the door in. Well, now the siren of the property's gone off. Now maybe the smoke's gone off, and now maybe there's another dog barking or whatever. And it's really, when you look at the police force top 10 lists, this is what you need to do to protect your property. You will see fit good locks, fit an alarm system,
Adequate lighting.
security lighting, all of those. Don't leave valuables on display, all of those sort of core things. But ultimately, it isn't, pick two. It's do
the whole
all
list.
of them.
But that leads me on to the next question. Do you think deterrence is more of an optional extra that people don't actually plan that from the beginning?
Absolutely.
It's more of an afterthought, or they think, no, first thing, let's just secure the property and let's not think about anything.
There was an interesting study that backs up everything Jason was saying. I don't know if it was an isolated place, but there was an area associated with antisocial behaviour. There was a lot of littering, broken windows, all that sort of stuff. And whoever the council or local authority was, just painted 2 human eyes on the wall, watching the area, and the incidence of antisocial behaviour dropped right off. Yeah, because the people conducting the felt like they just felt uncomfortable, so it inspired that behavioural change that you were talking about, and gave that deterrence that you're asking about.
I think deterrent is really important because that's the first thing. It's the first.
You don't want the crime to happen in the first place, do you?
We have some really good data, certainly in retail, where we've had customers installing these types of systems.
You're talking temporary
No.
systems.
Often attacks on retailer through the windows or front doors.
Kicking the front door.
Kicking the front door in. And obviously that then results in an intrusion and an alarm. But then there's the response time. So, okay, how long until the key holder comes out and does something about it? So the intruders know they have a window of opportunity. What we did for a few retailers was to create an escalated deterrent at the glazing. So effectively, there's motion-activated lighting at night. So suddenly it's like, lights have turned on. That wasn't there before.
Mm-hmm.
And then if they attack the glazing, vibration sensors, or in some cases, camera analytics will trigger from loitering. And then we strobe lights across the front of the store.
That's before they're getting in.
Before they get in. And, we've got good evidence that shows a store that was being hit every month hasn't been attacked for 2 years since that system was deployed. Now, the intruders don't know that this deterrent system is not actually a monitored alarm system. It is purely a mechanism to change behaviour. But they don't know that. So it's effective.
Unless they watch this podcast.
Oh, no.
Give it the game away
now. I've done stuff similar with retailers, putting temporary systems in, post-break-in. And because of the systems that we had were very visual, that Battenberg colours over, it was the company I used to work for was Deterrent, formerly PID Systems. We kind of broke that whole security pod into the market, but we originally went for civil engineering sites. Originally, when they designed, talking about Deterrent, they designed the units to be grey and blend in the background. Then all of a sudden, why don't we want to stand out and stop them in the first place?
Then didn't they want their blue and yellow now?
They're just Battenberg colours, They just and then
like
it's
police
the whole
checkerboard.
it was the whole, and everyone's kind of done the same in the industry now. But when working with the retailers, it was good. We put, rather than them putting a security guard in, obviously when people are kicking in the front door of a shop on a high street, they've got to repair that door. There's an asbestos. There's all sorts of things to wait for it all to be sorted out, or to put roller shutters in. But what we found is we put the units in the window. And what we actually found was that some of the stores were supposed to wheel them away and put them away in the day.
They just left them.
And actually people started leaving them out on the store floor because they saw a drop in shoplifting.
We've seen that sort of thing as well
and they weren't even turned on. Yeah.
They named one of our rapid deploy machines in one of the stores. They called him Clive and set up a Facebook page for him. They kind of get attached to the device, don't they, and want it to be seen.
We did some stuff with Smoke as well. I'm not sure if it was with you guys or not.
I think the theory's still the same, isn't it?
I think we got named a couple of units more. Mandy and Jane or something.
But the deterrence bit, just anecdotally, this has been going on for a very long. I mean, I joined the industry in '99, like I said, and all the things that we're talking about, things that have been talked about for the whole 25 years, really. And anecdotally, we rolled out with 2 major supermarket chains. One was proactive, one was reactive. So the proactive one, every new site that was built, they put in the fog system as part of the standard spec. The other one would wait until they got a hit and then react. And what we noticed was when we were going to do a new installation in the proactive place, they wouldn't have an attack at all, but we'd be back a couple of weeks later doing a reactive piece for the other guys because the bad guys would have seen the warning stickers go up, so that behaviour change you're looking for, and just go and target. And so you do end up pushing the problem down the road still, which is still a problem. But that deterrence piece there, having the visual, some kind of visual thing, whether it's lighting, changing behaviour or...
Well, the other thing that, perhaps going back to the CCTV days, if you look at that evolution of behavioural change from, somebody's watching me because there's a camera, then eventually it's like nobody's watching the camera. The retailers then said, well, let's put public view monitors up at the front of every store.
Yeah, that's good,
And that will remind shoplifters that they're on camera, the camera system's working, it's really good quality, and we watched you walk in the door. And that's probably, 15 years ago that they made that change. Well, now, of course, the shoplifters are coming in, they've got the hoodies down, they're looking at their phones. They don't care about that PVM anymore. So one of the products we developed for a retailer was to flash a light as it detects motion as somebody walks in the door. And it's just one of those human behaviours. You see the flashing light, you look up, and of course, what you're doing is then
looking
giving
straight
your
at the camera.
face to the camera.
And
on the
I've
PVM.
noticed that because since you told me, every time I walk into this particular store, I'm always looking up because they've got a round ring, and I'm looking at the round ring, and then next thing you know, right, you're on camera. It's such a simple thing. It gets a person's image.
Just you naturally just glance at it, don't you? And
So again, that's a behavioural change factor that's like, well, how does that affect the shoplifter? Does he care? In some cases, absolutely not. And there's going to make no difference. They're like, I don't mind, I don't care. It doesn't. Other people will just go, oops. I'm probably on a database. Maybe somebody's going to come and walk out the office and feel my collar in a minute. They don't know. So in some cases, it can be quite an effective behavioural change. But again, actually, all it's really doing is displacing that shoplifter to go, well, I showed my face in this shop. The next shop I go into, I'm going to make sure I've got the cap pulled down and they're not going to catch me.
Don't look at the lights.
Don't look at the lights.
Don't look at the light.
There was while we're on the subject of shoplifting, there was another kind of deterrent. I think I was in Sainsbury's, and it was on a shelf where I think they had the electric toothbrush heads, which they're quite costly. And as I went to reach it, a sound comes saying it beeped, and it says a member of staff is coming towards you. And I looked around and thought, and then there was an actual sensor above this shelf. That when you went to
Smart Shelf, I think it's called, or something like
it was,
that.
and then I just kept doing it, and then no one turned up. I thought, let me actually see if someone. And no one turned up. It was just more behavioural thing to see.
What sort of sensor was
it? Was
that?
just like a normal PIR sensor with a speaker on it, which was covering over that area of the shelf.
Yeah.
So I think they had it on razor blades as well, because they're another thing that gets shoplifted quite a lot.
Perennial problem.
But
Booze,
now
meat,
I don't see them in the store anymore. So obviously it probably didn't work.
Well, I think certainly the shoplifting pandemic is creating problems for retailers, and they've got to try lots of different approaches and see what works. And equally, it's cat and mouse. You're never going to nail the problem forever.
Yeah.
Unless we go back to the days of a bench and a shopkeeper behind it who says, "What would you like?"
Yeah.
He turns around and reaches it over. To some extent. Convenience shopping has created some of these problems. Go and get the stuff yourself, check it out yourself. It's created opportunity for crime, and to some extent, the psychology of not just the criminal, but everybody's psychology to some extent is like, well, you might as well just take it.
Well, there's different parts in that, because one, you have the shoplifters who'll go and actually pick the items up and keep them. And then at the self-checkout, you'll get the people who'll, I'll skip that one. And they might have done £100 shop, but only paid £20. There's a lot of that coming up in the news as well.
There's a name for that type of thief. It's not normally a criminal, not normally a shop. I can't remember.
They're normally middle class
people
who were just trying it just for a buzz.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Thrill seekers.
Inadvertently, I would add.
There's a product which I saw at an exhibition in Essen, and I have seen it online as well, and you guys might have come across it. It's called the the paintball cam.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I see. Yeah.
It's in effect a big machine with a camera and paintball gun inside, and it will automatically
like a sentry gun.
Yeah, it will
Yeah.
automatically find, if you trip the perimeter, etc., and it'll start firing.
So there is definitely an appetite from
intervene.
some end users to find highly proactive mechanisms to change behaviour, and of course, they go all the way up. But actually, most of those efforts that have tried to commercialise have failed, and I think probably we may all recall the Mosquito, which was quite a famous. Am I going to get sued now? That was quite a famous.
Why did they
one.
stop that? Was it because it was damaging young kids?
No. So it was seen as targeting a specific age group, and therefore the people who were installing it were being seen to be, in their own respect, antisocial. They were highlighting a particular group and saying, we don't want you around, and that's why they stopped it. And, we know, for example, with strobing light deterrents, we can create a contrast and a frequency that would make you feel very, very sick and would make it hard for you to stay in the area.
Okay.
That's just with strobing.
Yeah, that's with strobing. There's certain frequencies. Unfortunately, well, we would not deploy it because, again, it's quite antisocial. It would also be highly likely to trigger epilepsy.
Epilepsy, yeah, I was thinking.
So potentially quite dangerous in certain circumstances. And if you go into these areas with a lot of major end users, they're going to be like, no, we understand it. Wouldn't it be great if we could? But no, absolutely not. That is not what our brand stands for. We don't want to be seen as somebody who behaves that way. So I think that, there are...
Do you think it will reach a tipping point, though, where we do
maybe
cross over that?
It might be a
people
bit
get fed up.
market specific. I mean, if you look at South Africa, they've got a very different stance.
Oh,
so
they've
the
got-
paintball
Yes.
gun you talk
With
about.
It initially is developed in South Africa.
Well, I know the exact product, and in South Africa they don't use paintballs; they use less than lethal rounds.
Is it pepper balls or something like that?
No, less than lethal rounds.
Okay.
So only a little bit less than lethal.
I think they take chunks out of fences.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then you've got the whole. There's actually systems that will deploy pepper spray.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that is seen as totally fine.
Yes.
Whereas
Yes.
obviously here it's a firearm,
That's
and
right.
would never consider it in a million years. Maybe yet, because there is a lot of noise, I'd say, in social media around. We've all seen the sort of counter jump style attacks, and it's all pretty dramatic. And people start saying, "Why doesn't the security guard do anything? Why aren't people intervening?" And it gets to a pretty sort of escalated and irate place pretty quickly. But yeah, at the moment, I'd say the kind of things you're talking about with using strobes, it's kind of market specific. Definitely not here today.
No.
And you'd hope kind of never really.
And again, going back to my view about sound, there's a lot of very high decibel sounders out there that can be extremely uncomfortable to be around. And, that is an effective deterrent because it's just horrible. If you've got all of those things combined, where you've got smoke and strobe and
Sound,
it's intolerable. But there are quite specific applications where you want to target harden to that extent, and certainly for the majority of applications in the UK, it's overkill today, and let's hope it stays that way. Really,
Touch wood. Yeah.
At what point should a system shift from the deterrence to now the defence side of things, and who should make that decision? Is it like the end users, or is it the consultants or the installers coming along saying, look, you've tried everything else, like you said, but you get a call, it's everyone's tried everything else, it's now time to try fog?
I think if you'd have asked me 20 years ago what the solution to any problem was, I'd have said a fog generator, right? But it's not really the right thing. It's got to be around risk modelling. It's got to be around understanding. Some of the most effective projects I've seen are where the final client actually understands their risk and knows how to model it properly, and then kind of predict where the issues are going to be and then deploy the appropriate response for that area. It's not like a one-size-fits-all kind of solution to these things.
Everything's different, isn't it?
Well, and I think further than that as well, you know, to Umar's original question, I think in some cases the end user really has the insight and expertise to understand their specific issues and problems and are often able to come up with solutions. However, as an industry, generally there'll be, you know, a team of people in an office somewhere in Southeast Asia coming up with the latest tech that then gets forced onto the channel, and it's like, oh no, you need this product because it's going to solve all your problems.
It's like
and the end user saying, well,
stuff.
yeah, these aren't my problems. You know, and one of the most rewarding things that I've been able to do with DeviceSmart is actually being able to listen to some of these end users with expertise, understand their issues, and then in some cases they're coming up with the technology solutions, and I'm going, yeah, we can make that, and they're like, really? And it's like, well, why not? If it's a good idea
they're not
for
used
you,
to it, are they? They're not used to being listened to. It's true though. It's true. I mean, we coach our team that. Although we never trade directly with final clients because, you know, there's the whole channels in between, like distribution, installers, all that sort of thing. We have to have a relationship with the final client for exactly what the reason you're talking about.
It's
because
good then. Yeah, it works.
Yeah, and the amount of times they say things like, we don't feel like the industry listens to us, or, you know, we know what our problems are. Why are you trying to tell us the solution to a problem we've not even told you what it is yet? Do you know what I mean?
It's almost like in some cases we used to see technological solutions to problems that didn't exist. And then as, you know, resellers or branch offices or whatever, we were tasked to then sell that technology. And it's like, but this is not a widespread problem that you're solving. Why have we created a solution
it's
for
often
it?
a cookie-cutter approach, a global approach, isn't it, really?
Well, it's not even that. I mean, certainly in the CCTV industry, a lot of it was from the chip developer has created this function.
Yes.
We have implemented it into this product. This does this particular function that you should be able to find an application for. So it was top-down development rather than customer-driven development. And, you know, as perhaps the industry has matured, that disassociation in some respects has increased. We have seen good examples of technology companies in the security industry getting back to understanding the problems. I think we've seen
customer needs.
You know, I think Ajax are a good example of trying to reinvent technology to suit the customer. I think they've implemented that well, rather than just saying, hey, we can make this, go and sell it.
I think, like you said, Ajax, I think they've looked at it from a complete layered approach, because they don't just focus on your intrusion system internally. They've, you know, lots and lots of external products with your curtain detectors, your outdoor detectors with cameras. I think you're right. They're saying they've looked at the whole thing and said, here's a solution that we can offer for every environment.
Well, you know, if you not necessarily want to spend too much time on Ajax, but if you look at the focus that they've put on outdoor detection, which of course is, you know, Optex's back garden, if you look at the focus they've put on that, it's like, why are they moving the boundary outside of the building? Because I do believe they understand that, you know, actually they can create pre-warnings, they can create deterrent systems, they can create early warnings and change behaviour by using external detection.
Yeah, I think traditionally in the UK we wait for people to be stood in our hallway
before something happens.
Yeah. But we go back to Spain, South Africa, all those markets. It's about putting early warning detection into
100%.
garden environments, and I believe there is a move within the UK to do that and make external detectors graded at some point. I don't know how far it is down the line. But that'll be interesting. And like you're saying, you want to wait.
I can see where there might be a use case for like grade 3 external detection, but I think for the majority of applications, what we're really looking at is not necessarily triggering that key holder response or flying that helicopter in because somebody's broken an external perimeter beam. I think that the perimeter detection or the external detection, that early warning system should be creating an automated deterrent first before triggering the escalated response.
Yeah, I think that's got a lot of merit, actually. Just thinking back to the Brazilian bank that I was on about, the modes of attack were all the banks in Brazil, believe it or not, are glass fronted. It's not like here, and it's like the very first thing I'd change would be to have stone walls. Anyway, the mode of attack was they'd come with a very long steel bar, smash their way through the glass, and then use the steel bar to lever open the cash dispenser. And there was a big push to have some analytics that would detect people coming with detect the steel bar, so they could then generate the escalated response. And you could see that very easily being a change of lighting or player sound, voice challenge. If they still persist, then let's move to the next level, sort of thing. So, yeah, you could see that working quite well.
On the fog machine itself, as a defence mechanism, personally, I think I actually love the product, as you well know. Probably love it more than you do, because when I'm always setting it off on videos, etc., there's always comments. People come, "Oh, that's an insurance claim waiting to be happened."
Yeah.
I think with the fog units themselves, they should be deployed more than they actually are. It's more like you said, you have to go and educate the end user that, look, you're not going to have an insurance claim. You're not going to have, it's not harmful to food. It's not harmful to health. Why do you think it's...
Well, I don't want to jump in on Matt's answer, but I'm just wondering who is responsible for that education and that awareness.
That's a good question.
You know, is it us as manufacturers? Is it the installers? You know, how would the end user be aware of all of these unless they were security director at a big retailer that goes to the trade shows and reads the magazines?
Understands it, yeah.
I think there's probably an element, certainly in Europe, that's missing around standardisation for... Cause I think really what you're talking about is command-fired fog when public may be present.
Yes.
Yeah. So the current European standard is driven around out-of-hours, burglaries and that kind of stuff. There's a very, very small section that says, oh, if you're going to use this in a hold-up, you might want to have a think about it. That's kind of all it says. So I think it would help, and the standard is due for review. I think it would help to flesh
expand
out
on that.
Exactly, take on board all the because it has been used successfully. The kind of reactive measure against, because you're quite right. The very first thing that I thought when somebody asked us could it be done was somebody's going to get hurt potentially, and it actually took and I think this answers your point as well. Who should be coming up with it's got to be driven by final clients who understand their risk. And this particular client, this was years ago, said, if you don't do it, Matt, we'll do it with someone else because we are under that much pressure. We have to do something. And it's very specifically is in jewellery. So they tend to be at the sharp end of risk because of what they do, obviously. And they did it, did their own risk assessments, enabled their staff to be able to command fire in the event of a raid, and they've been doing it for years, and it's like universally successful. And I think it comes into psychology, but once the attacker has lost eye contact with the victim, they've lost the power as well, and they're just like, nah, we'll leave. So it could be done very effectively, very safely, but then you get into a new set of conversations, which is, yeah, well, we're different to a jeweler. Our retail space is completely different, and you sort of keep moving. And I think ultimately it's driven by risk. If people are under that much pressure, eventually they will take more and more measures, which goes back to your original question of when does it go over a tipping point to the next stage and the next stage and the next stage. But the short answer to the question is I think it's driven. The education should be done by work being done in standardisation with consultation from users.
And do you see that happening at any point within the standardizations?
Yes, yeah, I do. Yeah, namely because the working group that I'm on it, so I can see the sort of conversations that are happening within the working group, and it's due for review, and it's conversations that are happening to to address those things because it's missing. The British Security Industry Association has actually released its own code of practice
For fog.
and also addressing this kind of scenario where it may be used in the event of a raid as opposed to a burglary. So if the British industry is having to write its own stuff, it's clearly missing from standardisation and needs to be addressed because it is being used.
How well do you think installers understand a layered and integration, like, you know, all your products that you guys do here with the detectors, your deterrents and the fog? How well, and you guys probably speak to installers all the time as well, how well do you see that they understand that, you know, our detectors can be integrated with the device smart lights, and we can also integrate them with the fogging machines as well?
Certainly in my product category, there's a big gap. You know, one of the biggest issues I have as a security lighting product category is that actually security installers don't do lighting, and historically they don't do lighting because it's been a mains powered,
and they're not electricians.
They're not electricians. so my products are PoE or low voltage or whatever, so they can. But that means that they've got to be educated, be aware, and then change their habits. And that's really hard work for a small business like me to try and influence a market. But, you know, I will always say, who do you think should be installing security lighting? You know, the guy who put up your cameras and installed your intruder alarm, or the guy who fitted your dishwasher? You know, this is a product that can be integrated, has more effectiveness when it's integrated. So it should be a security integrator's responsibility. But unfortunately, that's just not how it's been. So I'm pushing the rock uphill on that one at the moment. But integration is absolutely critical to this concept of behavioural change. You know, it's one thing triggering another.
Yes.
You know, one detection triggering a reaction that changes behaviour. It's creating that sequence of events, and it can only be done through integration. Really.
Yeah. Where do you see the next major step within security as a whole? With perimeter protection, deterrence. How do you see the future evolving as time passes?
I'm going to hit the AI buzzword straight away.
Yeah, we've not heard that much there.
Well, AI has the capability to be a highly effective element of behavioural change. Primarily, the areas where we're working on are around voice. You know, I've already mentioned that I think voice warnings can be highly effective as behavioural change factors. I think using AI to analyse what's happening, to create smart warnings, and to deliver those target-specific warnings, you know, is where we're going to see. And you know, we already know that some of this is happening globally. We're seeing some of that first technology seeping out. You know, I believe that that routine activity theory concept again, you know, the capable guardian, human beings respond incredibly well to voice instruction, especially if it's unexpected and delivered in an accurate and targeted, personalised way.
Some flashing lights to boot. Yeah.
Well, layering with,
How would you personalise it?
You in the blue coat, you are being watched. You get the LLM. Is that the idea? You get the LLM to deliver a text-to-speach delivery.
Oh my God, look at that. He's created it. Or just in a few seconds, he's made the product. There are some highly complex and challenging aspects to doing that reliably.
Yeah, sure.
But I don't think it's about volume. I don't think it's about decibels. I think it's about quality. I think it's about delivering highly targeted messages that is extremely impactful. You know, if you can just imagine it's your mum telling you off. If the voice warning is in a regionalised
if it was
accent,
my mum, I'd be like, I'm out here.
yeah, a regionalised accent, rather than a canned, pre-recorded. The intruder goes, I know what that is.
Well, you mentioned Deterrent earlier, and the sort of voice signature was Northern Irish, wasn't it? 'Cause it sounds more aggressive, basically. And they were like,
it's not what you're expecting in the middle of the night when you're hitting a site to be shouted at in a loud Northern Irish accent.
So I think AI has got huge scope for influencing behaviour in lots of different ways. And of course, cameras will be a key driver of that because they're already doing a lot of AI at the edge. Also, there's huge opportunities for AI in the cloud to observe and respond in different ways. And then I think certainly the most likely step change will be that we will use voice more effectively. And that can go all the way through to some of the retail applications that we were talking about. So for example, if you've got a situation where you've got aggressive behaviour in a retail environment, you can use voice very effectively. It doesn't need to be loud and intimidating. It can be just like, okay, we've detected that somebody's swearing and shouting and being aggressive. That's an AI function that we already see on the edge of devices today. Why don't we just create a voice warning that says, we've identified there's a problem in this aisle and a member of staff will be coming down to help you shortly. It doesn't need to be aggressive or, it doesn't need to escalate the situation further. But I think voice, again, has that power to really hit you psychologically where you need to be psychologically hit.
If you're making it specific to what they're wearing as well with the AI, then that's going to stop you because you know that you're definitely going to be being watched then. So,
I'm just thinking now, because now a lot of the surveillance manufacturers, you can do a search or type in person wearing a blazer with a blue pair of jeans, and it's quite effective how it brings up. So that it would just need a bit of reverse engineering rather than you typing it in. It automatically...
It needs a bit more processing power because you don't have the luxury of time because you're trying to do this on the fly. So there are a lot of challenges about it. I've been working on it
I was just going to say, is it something that you're currently working on?
Voice has been the focus of our development plans for the last 2 years, really. And actually, voice was really the key driver for Device Smart starting. But it's so difficult to get right. You can make voice warnings badly quite easily, but to make them work effectively and to be effective instigators of behavioural change, you've got to get quality, you've got to get believability and realism into that, and that's quite tough. But it's those subtle differences that have the deeper psychological impact. I need to go and talk to my therapist, don't I?
How do you see AI working with Fogger?
I think you can see it being able to potentially enhance the intelligence of when to fire and when not to, and when to generate alerts and when not to. I mean, we started off talking about false alarms at the beginning of this sort of chat, and when I joined the industry, I think it was 94% of all police responses to electronic alarms was a false alarm. And that's more or less where the current set of standards started being developed, because ACPO, the Association of Chief Police Officers at the time, released a set of standards saying you need 2 forms of detection. And then it built up from there, DD243, etc., PD662, until we got to where we are today. And that resulted in the first couple of years, that initiative resulted in a drop in the rate of false alarms to 84%. So from 94 to 84%. I thought that sounded terrible, but everyone was like, this is a massive success. You don't understand.
That's a lot of alarms.
It's a lot of alarms,
yeah.
So, I could see AI just being able to enhance that. I mean, we've got some slightly bonkers ideas ourselves about turret-mounted fog machines that kind of track the bad guy and just fire it at them as they're...
little robots.
Like little robot. Yeah, things like that, But I mean, I'm kind of blown away by the development that you guys have just mentioned. It sounds really, really good, that sort of thing. So I've got nothing further to add on that one.
How about yourself, Lawrence? Do you see any AI developments within the kind of detection range?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I believe we're working on stuff already anyway. But we've got a level of intelligence within some of our products already. But that'll only improve on there when you're trying to detect, say, small objects. We do a lot of things like throw-overs. So we've done stuff where people will throw passport. They'll go through passport control and throw a passport back.
Yeah.
But trying to detect that, or detecting people chucking objects out of a site and things. But that AI will only enhance that and make that more accurate.
Well, I think there's a separation in AI capabilities. AI at the edge on a device probably is in a can and limited in its functionality and capabilities. But cloud-based AI has continued to improve in its ability to do whatever task it's given at a phenomenal rate. So actually, if you look at the future of AI-based responses, if they're doing a job, for example, looking at a throw-over alarm or whatever you're trying to detect, potentially we might be in a situation where we're deploying technology today that will be better next year because it's using AI in the cloud that is advancing. The trick, the challenge to some extent, is how you integrate the big AI engines into an edge product and maintain that connection reliably. And these are some of the problems and challenges that we're dealing with. The capabilities to do a proof of concept and say, hey, look how this works is there, and we can do that. But the opportunity to be able to provide a customer with a solution and then say it's good now, but you wait and see how good it is next year. Next year it's not going to go, hey, you in the blue suit. It's going to go, you from number 42.
Passport number, this
I've messaged your mum. She's coming to get you. So I think it's one of those frontiers where we can go, oh, look, it can be better. But actually, I don't think we really understand how
there's quite an urgent
to evolve.
Discussion around regulation, isn't there, within the industry, around regulation of things like facial recognition,
data protection,
all that sort of stuff, yeah. And you can see why, because the technology is rapidly facial recognition is there, more or less.
But I think we already have lots of systems that can store data like faces, and there are database based products around. They've managed to make that work through ICO. Actually, I don't think a lot of the future development is going to be around data storage. That's a hangover from the way that we worked with CCTV. I don't think the storage of people's images and faces and things that cause problems with
processing, is that where you're heading?
I think it's much more about how do we do stuff dynamically? How do we take this information, use it, create the response, and monitor that it's been effective, and then basically go back and if there was any storage of images used in that process, well, after 5 minutes we'll get rid of them because evidential recording is already done.
Dusted,
the sort of scenario you're describing, though, I could take this off into a very dystopian future, where it's like, hey, you from number 42, we've messaged your mum. That's like judge, jury, and executioner, essentially, isn't it? So the AI has made a judgment, issued a consequence with no human intervention. What if it gets it wrong?
We're not developing this product, by the way. This is not where we're going. But I do think it's a doorway that has only just creaked open now. And I think, the industry as a whole they're going to listen to this podcast and go, oh yeah, what are we going to do with this? I don't know where it's going to go because actually the industry itself doesn't really understand where AI is going to go. So there's a lot of unknowns, but in terms of, power to change behaviour, AI can do a lot. if it's integrated and implemented in a smart way, and you've got end users that have got an understanding of how to do it, I think that there will be some amazing stuff coming out in the next few years.
That actually just falls onto my final question: is, are criminals evolving quicker than technology, or are now manufacturers actually one step ahead? And that's sort of like you did just touch on there, because AI is going to take over a lot of you know, the changes that are taking place.
Well, I mean, the alarm receiving center is a
key thing, because a lot of that is handled by AI now as well. In terms of, you know, answering, reducing the false alarms, and then what to do, who to call, who to dispatch, etc.
Yeah, but I think there's more capacity for AI to impact alarm receiving centres.
Yeah,
that's inevitable. In terms of, you know, the cat and mouse game, you know, I think as long as we want to continue our careers in developing technology solutions to security problems, we'll always have jobs, because that's all it's ever going to be. There's going to be an evolution in the systems that we create to protect people and property, and then the understanding and awareness of the criminal will adapt and change.
Yeah, they'll always adapt and change. They're always ahead of the game.
And then we'll move on again. And that's the game we play. And I don't think that game will ever stop. Mm. So we're all jobs for the lads here.
Gentlemen, I want to thank you all for taking out time and joining us on this podcast. Thank you.
Thanks, Umar. Well done.
That wraps up today's discussion on proactive security. A big thank you to Lawrence Peters from Optex, Jason Hill from DeviceSmart, and Matthew Gilmartin from Smokescreen for bringing their insight and experience to the table. We covered the journey from early detection to effective deterrence to what happens when an intruder actually gets in. And it's clear that proactive security is becoming a much bigger part of how systems are designed and delivered across the UK. This is exactly what Room Secured is about. Real conversations, honest perspectives, and getting the industry talking about the things that matter. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure you subscribe, hit the bell icon, and follow along. More episodes are coming soon.